The sun was dipping low over the jagged peaks of the national park, casting a golden hue across the tranquil lake that mirrored the fiery sky. I'd been dreaming of this solo camping trip for months, a much-needed escape from the soul-crushing grind of city life and my overbearing HOA back home. Little did I know that the wilderness held its own breed of entitled monsters, and one was about to shatter my peace with a demand so audacious it would lead to her epic downfall. As I hammered the last stake into my tent, a screeching minivan barreled into the campground, kicking up dust like a tornado on wheels. Out spilled a woman who embodied every stereotype of suburban tyranny: perfectly coiffed hair, a designer athleisure, and a glare that could curdle milk. This was the beginning of my encounter with HOA Karen, and by the end of it, she'd be packing her bags in humiliated defeat. I'd arrived at Willow Creek Campground early that morning, securing one of the prime spots right by the water's edge. Site 17 was a gem shaded by towering pines, with a fire pit overlooking the rippling lake, where trout jumped like silver flashes in the sunlight. As a software engineer who'd just survived a brutal layoff round, this was my sanctuary. No emails, no Zoom calls, just me, my backpacking gear, and a stack of books I'd been ignoring for years. I set up my tent meticulously, stringing fairy lights around the perimeter for that cozy vibe, and even built a small rock cairn to mark my temporary territory. The air smelled of pine sap and fresh earth, and for the first time in ages, I felt truly unburdened. As the afternoon wore on, families trickled in, filling the adjacent sites with laughter and the sizzle of barbecues. I nodded politely at my neighbors, a young couple with a golden retriever and an elderly pair bird-watching from their RV. Everyone respected the unspoken rules of camping: keep noise down, clean up after yourself, and don't encroach on others. Space. But then came the minivan. It swerved into the lot like it owned the place, blasting pop music that echoed off the mountains. The driver, a woman in her mid-40s with sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, slammed the door, and surveyed the area with disdain. Trailing behind her were 3 kids, 2 boys around 8 and 10, glued to their tablets, and a toddler girl in a frilly dress that screamed indoor only. She marched straight toward the ranger station, her flip-flops slapping against the gravel. I didn't pay much attention at first, focused on brewing a pot of coffee over my portable stove. But minutes later, she re-emerged, clipboard in hand, her face twisted in frustration. The ranger, a burly man named Tom, with a beard that rivaled Grizzly Adams, followed her out, shaking his head. "Ma'am, all the lakeside spots are reserved," he said firmly. "We'll have to take Site 42 up the hill." She waved her arms dramatically. "But my children need the water view. Do you know who I am? I'm the president of my HOA back in Suburbia Heights." "We have standards," I chuckled to myself, overhearing the exchange from my chair. "HOA Karen, perfect nickname," she huffed back too. Her van, unloading a mountain of gear that looked more suited to a glamping resort than a rustic park: inflatable pools, battery-powered fans, and enough snacks to feed an army. Her kids whined incessantly, the boys demanding Wi-Fi, and the toddler throwing a tantrum over a dropped pacifier. Instead of setting up at Site 42, she eyed the campground like a hawk scouting prey. That's when her gaze locked onto my spot. She approached with the confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "This is a lovely site. My kids would adore it. The water's perfect for them to play. You've got it all to yourself, and we're a family. How about you swap with us? We'll take good care of it." I looked up from my book, stunned. No thanks. I reserved this spot months ago. It's first come, first served for the premium ones, and I got here early." Her smile faltered, replaced by a scowl. "But think of the children. My boys have been cooped up all week with school, and little Emily needs space to run. You're alone. It's selfish to hog such a big area. Selfish." I felt my blood pressure rise. I'd planned this trip as a mental health reset, not a charity event for entitled families. "Look, lady, I'm not moving. There are plenty of other spots." She crossed her arms, her voice escalating. "I demand you reconsider. Back home in my HOA, we have rules about community sharing. This is public land. It's for everyone." The irony hit me like a sledgehammer. Public land meant equal access, not preferential treatment for loudmouths. Her kids, sensing the tension, started chanting, "We want the lake. We want the lake." Neighbors peeked from their tents, whispering. Undeterred, Karen pulled out her phone and started filming me. "I'm documenting this for the authorities. You're denying children a joyful experience." I stood up, keeping my cool, put the phone away. "This is ridiculous." But she doubled down, marching back to the ranger station, dragging her oldest boy. "For dramatic effect, Ranger, this man is harassing us. He won't let my family have a safe spot." Tom emerged again, looking weary. He listened to her rant, then turned to me. "Sir, is there an issue?" I explained calmly. I'd reserved fairly, set up properly, and she was demanding I vacate. Tom nodded, checking his logbook. "Ma'am, Site 17 is indeed reserved under his name. You need to set up at 42. Karen's face turned a beet red. "This is discrimination. My husband is a lawyer. He'll sue the Park Service. You pay taxes for places like this." The kids, now bored, wandered off toward my fire pit, kicking over my rock cairn. I shouted, "Get them away from my stuff." Karen smirked. "See? He's aggressive. For the safety of my children, I insist we take this site." The standoff drew a crowd. The young couple with the dog offered support. "She's out of line, man." Elderly birdwatchers clucked in disapproval. Tom radioed for backup, his patience. "Thinning, ma'am. If you don't comply, I'll have to issue a citation." Karen planted herself on my picnic table, arms folded defiantly. "I'm not moving until justice is served. My kids deserve this." Her boys splashed rocks into the lake from my spot, while the toddler drew in the dirt with my hiking poles. I felt invaded, my peaceful retreat turning into a circus. But I refused to escalate. Karma had a way of handling these types. Tom sighed. Pulling out his ticket book. "Last warning." Karen whipped out her wallet, flashing an HOA badge like it was FBI credentials. "You know what this means? Authority. Back home, I fine people for unkempt lawns. Here, I'm fining you for incompetence." The absurdity peaked when she tried bribing Tom with a $50 bill. For the kids, she whispered loudly. That's when the second ranger arrived, a no-nonsense woman named Lisa. With years of dealing with park pests under her belt, she assessed the scene. Karen squatting on my table, kids trashing my site, me standing firm. "What's the reservation number for Site 17? She asked. I provided it instantly, Karen stammered. "But family needs." Lisa checked the system on her tablet, confirmed. "Ma'am, you're trespassing. Pack up or face eviction." Karen exploded. "Eviction? This is tyranny? I'll call the governor." But Lisa was unmoved. She escorted Karen's kids back to the minivan, then supervised as Karen begrudgingly loaded her gear. The humiliation unfolded in slow motion, her designer bag snagging on branches, the inflatable pool deflating underfoot, and her phone slipping into the dirt mid-rant. Neighbors applauded quietly as Tom helped encourage her departure. "You haven't heard the last of this," she yelled, peeling out in a cloud of dust. With Karen gone, peace returned like a bomb. I rebuilt my cairn, restarted my fire, and shared a beer with the young couple, toasting to Ranger Justice. That night, under a canopy of stars, I reflected on how entitlement knows no bounds, not even in the wild. But out here, rules were enforced by those who protected the land, not self-appointed queens. My trip salvaged, I slept soundly, dreaming of future adventures free from HOA horrors. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, the lake a mirror of serenity. I hiked the trails, spotting deer and eagles, my mind clear of yesterday's drama. Word spread through the campground. Karen had tried the same stunt at another site up the hill, only to be rebuffed again. By noon, rangers confirmed she'd left the park entirely, tail between her legs. It was a small victory, but in a world full of Karens, it felt monumental. As I packed up days later, I couldn't help but smile. That strong hook of entitlement had snagged her own downfall, proving that in nature, as in life, humility wins. And if you're ever camping at Willow Creek, snag Site 17, it's worth the fight.